We're living through a crazy time when it comes to creativity. You've probably seen all this stuff already, like AI tools that can color grade and sound mix and even generate 4K video that's hyper realistic in just a few seconds. And if you're a filmmaker, it's getting hard not to wonder whether there's still a future in this industry for you. Because right now it feels to me like everything's collapsing all at once. Jobs and budgets, and the whole industry seems like it's in free fall, and a lot of that is because of AI. So I wanted to see what the enemy had to say for itself. So in this video, I'm going to be interrogating Chatgpt about the future of filmmaking in an AI world. I grilled it about what's coming over the next few years, what skills still matter, what's worth learning, and how we can actually stay creative and make money through all this change. I really wasn't sure how this would go, but let me just say that it was so much more interesting and at the same time terrifying than I ever would have expected. So if you're feeling lost or left behind by this AI tidal wave, you might want to watch this one. Okay, so real quick before we get into this isn't a video about the ethics of AI and creativity. That's its own mess, and I have a lot of concerns. The way this stuff is being shoved into the world without thinking about the damage, especially in creative industries like film, is just honestly pretty reckless. But that ship has sailed whether I like it or not. It's here, and it's not going back in the box. So rather than pretend it's not happening, I wanted to see if AI could actually help. Like, can AI understand the real challenges filmmakers are facing that AI itself has largely created? Can it offer anything genuinely useful when it comes to adapting, or is it all just paid plugins and tips dredged from old websites? I actually got the idea for this video after watching the productivity YouTuber Ali Abdaal almost start crying on camera after asking Chatgpt to analyze him like a therapist. If you haven't seen that video, it was pretty wild. Like, he had to cut and take a break because it was saying things in response to his prompts that were hitting so close to the bone. And that really made me think, like, if this stuff can dig that deeply on Ali, what would happen if I asked it hard questions about the future of filmmaking? So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I'm putting AI to the test, not as a gimmick, but to see if it can actually help me, and hopefully you, make smarter, creative, and career decisions in this crazy market. Because like you, I like this business, and I don't want to become obsolete in 5 years because I ignored all the warning signs and didn't adapt. Oh, and also, because I experimented with these prompts for so long, I actually ended up with a whole career analysis tool that I saved as a custom GP that I'm going to call the Filmmaker's Life Coach. Basically, I gave it more than 100 very specific instructions, so all you have to do is ask it, "What do I do?" or "Help me," and it'll run you through a series of questions about who you are and what your goals are. Once it knows your background, it creates a really detailed, customized report on all the threats you're likely to face, and then some suggestions on what moves you can make to get out ahead of things. Anyways, when I ran it on myself, the ideas it gave me were honestly pretty spot on, and I had my editor Santi try his career goals instead of mine, and it was equally helpful for him. It honestly led me to rethink a bunch of things about my business, and as my situation changes, I'm going to keep doing this maybe once or twice a year moving forward, because it really does help get the ideas flowing in surprising ways. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to give it a try, but just remember that this stuff is a starting point only, so please don't blindly follow whatever it says, but I found a ton of value when I tried it out personally. Either way, it's totally free, so check it out if you want. Alright, so I pre-wrote a bunch of kind of alternative prompts, and I'm going to start giving them one by one, and then we'll go through the answers to see what we can learn and what it might have gotten wrong. If you've never tried anything like this, the very first thing you need to do is give Chatgpt some instructions about what its job is and what its personality is. So I'm going to start with this. So imagine you are a life coach for filmmakers. Your job is to help me make smart decisions for my career. Are you ready? Okay, so the main reason you want to do that is because Chatgpt can give you a whole bunch of different information, but if you give it specific parameters, like telling it to be brutally honest, it really changes the way that these results come out. So if you want to try this for yourself, make sure it understands what its job is. So I don't want to hold back here. I'm just going to jump right into it. Will human filmmakers still be relevant in an AI world? Yeah, this is one of the first things I tried, and it was kind of interesting. I thought maybe it was going to give me just overly optimistic stuff, but this first line, yes, but only the right kind, is pretty interesting. So what did it say? Most human filmmakers will become irrelevant. Yikes. Not because AI will suddenly direct Oscar-winning movies, but because most filmmakers never learned how to think like entrepreneurs. Interesting. They rely on someone else to give them permission, a producer, a commissioner, a grant, or an algorithm. AI will replace these middle layers of opportunity, and the filmmakers who waited for gatekeepers will be left behind. The filmmakers who thrive will be multi-skilled, not just shooting pretty images, but also writing, editing, marketing, and distributing their own work. They'll be entrepreneurial, building audiences, not just portfolios. Hyper-adaptable, willing to change tools, platforms, and tactics fast without losing their voice or values. AI won't kill creativity, it will commodify average and amplify exceptional. If you're aiming to be a plug-and-play crew member, you're replaceable. You're developing a unique POV, building an audience, and treating your filmmaking business like you'll matter more than ever. I mean, there's not a ton of detail there, and you can ask it to expand if you want, and we're going to do a bit of that, but I mean, just as a starting point, that's really interesting. I imagine this isn't the kind of thing that a lot of people are going to want to hear, but I honestly think it's pretty much spot on. Most filmmakers never learned how to think like entrepreneurs. That is extremely true these days. As the industry sort of falls apart, filmmakers need to be business owners as much as they do creatives. And that's kind of always been true, but these days I think it's getting especially true. It goes on to say that filmmakers who want to succeed need to be entrepreneurial by building audiences and not just portfolios. And as much as I think people don't want that to be true, I think it's very true. When AI starts spitting out tons of high quality content, you're just not going to know what to believe. So you're going to follow the filmmaker as a personality as much as the work itself. Now, that's not going to sound great to a lot of people, and kind of myself included, because a lot of people would much rather focus on their art than building a brand and building an audience. But like it says here, it's about selling skills and stories and telling people what you can offer. It's not just about the results of those labor, especially as AI starts to just drown us in sort of high quality generic content. And then hyper-adaptable has always been true. Like, if you know anything about me, I started as a photojournalist, which I really liked. But even when I was first doing that, I wasn't able to sell my photos because they weren't very good. So I started writing articles to go with them to sort of sweeten the deal. Then the market in photography and news kind of dropped off, so I started adapting into video. Then as COVID hit and all my international work went away, I started adding in YouTube to that. You know, I've had to be hyper adaptable, like it says, to keep going with my career. And I think that's not new, but it's going to be more and more important. And then the critical part, without losing their voice or values. People are going to want to come to you for your brand, whatever that is, and that brand has to have a voice and values. And I think it's pretty accurate that that's where work in the future is going to come from. I also think this part about filmmakers who waited for gatekeepers will be left behind. If you're working in the industry right now, you'll probably know that there's a massive buying slump. It's really hard to get people to give you money ahead of time. And so many people out there have tons of ideas, but they're waiting for a grant, or they're waiting to sell their idea to Netflix or something. And those gatekeepers are getting flooded right now, and they don't have any money to buy anything. So I would highly suggest that you follow ChatGPT's advice here and you don't wait for gatekeepers. You start building stuff on your own. So that was a pretty interesting start, and I think pretty accurate based on my experience. But let's go a little bit further. Be brutally honest with me. Which filmmaking skills will still be relevant in 5 years? In 5 years, most technical filmmaking skills will be cheap, automated, or expected by default, just like knowing how to use email is today. The barrier to entry is vanishing. The only filmmaking skills that will matter are the ones AI can't fake or scale. Yeah. True. So what's still going to be relevant? Taste and creative judgment. Yes, 1,000%. AI can generate 1,000 options, but knowing which one is good and why, that's still human, at least for now. Taste can't be bought or coded for now. It's your edge, but only if you refine it ruthlessly. So that's a really great point. I mean, I've talked about Ira Glass, the producer from This American Life, before, and how his view is that when you're starting out, creative people usually have good taste, but their ability and their taste are out of sync.
But your taste the thing that got you into the game, your taste is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. You know what I mean?
AI might help us close the gap there and help us catch up to our taste. And that's going to mean that making your taste as sort of refined and as good as possible is going to be really important. And so to do that, you need to watch things with a really critical eye. You need to watch like a student, even taking notes. Why do you like things? What are certain people doing that make something stand out?
Okie dokie, sorry to hear about that.
Over everything else. A story sense. Anyone can prompt an AI to write a script, but deeply understanding structure, subtext, and tension and character is rare, and it shows. The skill translates across every role: editing, directing, producing, and even cinematography. So that's also true and pretty connected. If anyone can get AI to write a script, what's really going to matter is understanding whether or not it's giving you a good script. And for that, you need a sense of a story. You need to understand when something is relevant to either something going on in the real world or it's universally felt by a lot of different people. And then you need to understand whether or not it's building towards moments of tension and resolving in the right way. AI can give you an outline, but if you can't fact check it with your own knowledge, then you're just going to have to kind of do whatever it says. And for a while anyways, that's not a great idea. Directing humans. AI can make visual actors look real, but real people still want to be moved by other people. Leading a crew, pulling a performance from a subject, managing energy on set, that's irreplaceable. So yeah, it depends what you do. I don't really direct a lot of people. Well, I do. I don't direct actors, I should say. I direct a lot of real people, which is similar but different. Managing energy on set, for sure, that's big. For quite a while still, because of money and logistics, I don't think we're going to see those Atlas robots out there holding cameras on most jobs, especially documentaries. But how you manage everybody from the characters to the crew, AI can't do that. And I've always said that the soft skills are almost as important, if not more important, than the technical skills in some ways. So really working on that and how you relate to people and how you deal with other people is going to make you much, much harder to replace. If you're just a technician, like we've been saying, it's going to get tough. Original thinking, people still need to give AI prompts. If you're making generic work, AI will do it better and faster. Not as helpful, but it is true. I mean, you need to have new ideas, and that probably means reading is going to be really important, because reading is where you're going to get ideas, and just living a life full of varied experiences. That's the way you're going to get more original thinking. Building trust in networks. People hire people they can trust. AI has tools, but it can't make people believe in you. You know how to show up, solve problems, and collaborate. You'll get called. Not groundbreaking ideas here, but AI cannot create relationships. So if you have those relationships, it's going to be easier. Good, but not earth-shattering. Now, what's on their way out? Knowing how to operate a camera. Very relevant to me as a cinematographer. Autofocus is nearly flawless. Color science is baked in. Framing guides and AI shot generators are getting better than its juniors. Knowing why you move the camera matters. Just knowing how, not enough. Yeah, I mean, true. There is a lot of stuff. Some of that's wrong. Color science is baked in. I mean, yeah, it's always baked in, but you still need to shoot the footage properly. You know, autofocus is flawless. Yeah, but I don't use autofocus at all, really, except very certain things. So I get what it's trying to say here. I think the message is that knowing how to frame and knowing how to move the camera based on emotion and knowing where to position the camera based on what's important to story, that is critical. Understanding the technical stuff, I don't know if that's not important. It's just really easy now. Editing. Oof, Santi editing this one might hit close to home. Unless you're a top-tier editor with story instincts and pacing sense, AI is going to do decent first cuts. Assembly and even polishing will be automated. The creative decisions around rhythm and emotion will still matter. The clicking part won't. Yeah, I do think that's true, actually. I think that assistant editors are going to really have a hard time getting their foot in the door, and AI is going to get really good at making that first pass for you and probably taking over a lot of the cleanup jobs like sound mixing, maybe some coloring, transitions, really simple technical stuff. That used to be the work of a lot of people. Like it used to be that one editor would have an assistant editor or maybe many assistant editors underneath them handling that part, like audio syncing, all that stuff. I don't think that's going to be around for very much longer. And that's good news for editors because most editors don't actually want to do that. But it's bad news because how do you become an editor if you can't get these junior jobs first? So I want to make a whole other video about this phenomenon of how do you start climbing the ladder when the bottom rungs are all gone. It's a little beyond the scope of today, so wait a couple weeks and I'll get more on that. But that part is true, at least in my experience. And then basic color grading and audio mixing. Yeah, that stuff is true. AI is catching up really fast. And it hurts me to say because I've got a lot of friends who are colorists, but I think at the lower end and even into that mid-range level, I think a lot of that's going to dry up. Being a generalist with no voice is going to be obsolete. Jack of all trades used to be useful on indie crews. Now AI is your crew. Not sure about that. But if you don't have a distinct POV, being well-rounded just makes you replaceable. I do think that's true. I think niching is going to be incredibly important. That all-purpose videographer is going to be more and more replaceable, and they're going to be sort of a dime a dozen. I think being a specialist that works at a very high level in a specific niche, I think very important. Like I am a documentary specialist, right? And that doesn't mean that I only shoot documentaries. In fact, probably half of my income comes from commercials, but I never promote that side of things. I'm a specialist in one thing, and if you want that specialty to cross over into a different genre or niche or section of the industry, whatever, I can do that and shoot in that style. But yeah, I really think that's spot on. Being a generalist is no longer going to be viable. All right, so let's move on. I want to ask it, based on that information, based on this, if I was starting again from scratch in 2025, what kind of filmmaker should I become to still have a career in 10 years? Sorry about the typos. Scratch. If you were starting from scratch in 2025 and wanted a career that still exists in 2035, you wouldn't aim to be a traditional filmmaker. Well, yes and no. I have some very strong feelings here. I think that the traditional filmmaking market is going to keep existing. Like, I think there will be a demand for big blockbusters, and I think there's going to be a demand for indie artists like Sean Baker, who made Nora, or Brady Corbett, who did The Brutalist. There is going to be spaces in traditional filmmaking, but they're going to be very limited and a lot less. So if you want to go that route, you need to be really, really into it. Now, for a lot of people, this advice will apply, but I don't think that becoming a traditional filmmaker is impossible. It's just only going to be available for some people who get really, really good, are really passionate, or maybe really well connected. The safest filmmaking career is the one that doesn't rely on filmmaking to survive. You use storytelling to build leverage and design your career like a startup. Controversial. Before I start responding, let's read a bit of it. You own your own audience. You don't beg festivals or studios. You build the distribution before you build the film. I mean, audiences are extremely important going forward, I think, especially if you're ignoring that traditional path and you want to sort of thrive in an online run and gun smaller space. I do think you need to own your audience. I think a lot of people are going to hate this, and I'm going to ask some follow-up questions on branding. You monetize your skills, not jobs. You don't wait for someone to hire you to DP, edit, or direct. You sell education, consulting, creative strategy, or your own digital products. I mean, yeah, that is a very good business move. Now, do I think this is a fundamental truth? Not really. I could still survive full-time on just being hired as a DP. Now, I have 15 years of experience, and like I said, with the bottom rungs of the ladder sort of disappearing, how do you get that experience? That's a whole different thing. But I could live without a brand. The brand, the YouTube channel, is helping a lot, but I am still just a full-time cinematographer, and I would be just fine. Selling education, consulting, and creative strategy has helped a lot, and what it's really done is allowed me to turn down those jobs I don't feel good about, but I am still monetizing jobs, and I think if you're passionate and you get really good, you can do that too. But monetizing these skills afterwards, I think is a really smart idea, and it's helped me out a lot. Use AI as a crew. Yeah, I think that's true. Use AI to help. Help it to revise your pitches, help it to brainstorm. If you try out the Filmmaker's Life Coach, it'll give you suggestions for networking opportunities and things like that, and for things in your area. Yeah, use AI for what it's helpful for. Don't listen to it blindly, but use it like a crew. I think you could use it like some junior administrative crew, but it's not doing anything on set. You have a signature POV. Your work is recognizably yours. Yes, yes, this is spot on. People follow you for your perspective on the world, not just your lens choices. AI has really weird phrasing sometimes. It's like trying to be poetic, but it's just kind of uncanny valley. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I find it very strange. But yeah, you definitely want a POV. This is not the time to be making work that looks like what came before it. I did a video a while ago where I talked with Patrick O'Sullivan, the wandering DP.
Initially, when I got into the industry, I always thought, okay, so the barrier to entry is I just have to make it look like everything else that's on television. Like, if I do that, then I'll trick everyone into thinking that I'm good because I'll know what I'm doing if I can just make it look like that. That is the worst approach you could possibly take. The thing that you want to do is make something that you like, make enough of the things that you like, and if they are any good, other people will respond and hire you to make the things that you like. It's like I had to overcome the first 5 years of my career. The next 5, I spent overcoming the mistakes that I had made earlier trying to make it look like other people's stuff.
I think these days, this is extremely, extremely important. Don't make stuff that just looks like everything else. The boxing gym scene with the tube lights overhead and the haze, that is so generic now. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if you've made that before. I get it. It's a fun practice setup, but we don't need any more of that, and that is not distinct. I don't see those scenes and think, hey, I'm watching so-and-so's unique style. You got to find your own way. You experiment in public. Release short content, essays, behind the scenes, micro docs. You don't spend 2 years to make a single masterpiece. Yeah, I mean, I think that is good advice. Again, not true for 100% of people, and some people will just disappear and make those masterpieces, and I love that for them. But for a lot of people, showing your work in public helps. Like for me, YouTube, showing my process, 1, it keeps me accountable, it keeps me making stuff regularly, but 2, it also sort of builds that audience. So experimenting in public is a great way to build that brand that nobody wants to do, but sharing that process as it evolves has a lot of trickle-down effects for the creator. At least it has for me. So you could do that on YouTube, you could do it on a blog, you could do it anywhere, but I do think that is good advice. I mean, if I look at channels like David Moorfield, Cranky Cameraman is a good one, Tenfold Productions has a filmmaking podcast. There's a lot of these people who they don't have huge followings. You don't need that, but they are experimenting in public, and it is helping raise their personal brand, which it looks like it's helping them make more jobs. Actually, this has given me a good idea. I think I'm going to reach out to some of these smaller creators and ask them exactly how it's helping them, and then put together a video on how you could sort of do this brand building thing. Let me know in the comments if you like that idea. You're not romantic about the medium. You don't force everything into a 90-minute film. Sometimes it's a podcast, sometimes it's a newsletter, sometimes it's a tweet thread. You don't care about the format, you care about the effect. I mean, good advice for business. Whether or not you like that is another story. I mean, I'm personally not that precious about the medium. I didn't hate switching from photography to video. Some people feel differently. I am currently doing an MFA in creative nonfiction writing, so that's another medium I'm adding. I personally just like finding real stories in the world and communicating them, and I am not precious, and I will share those stories in any format. Is that true for you? I don't know, but I think it is kind of good generic advice. Again, hardcore specialists who are passionate about doing things the old school big way, there will be a place there. This is advice for the newer filmmaker. And if I was just starting again, that does make sense. Okay, let's keep going here. Here's one I want to... Actually, you know what? Let's ask a follow-up question. Do I need a personal brand to survive? This is a great answer. Yes, but not in the way you're thinking. You don't need to become an influencer. You don't need a slogan, blah, blah, blah. You do need a personal brand in that people need to know what you stand for, what you're great at, and why they should trust you without needing to Google you. So finding that niche, that's what I was saying. It is true. It's been very true for me. They hire me because of my doc brand to go do their commercials in a style that they want. They don't hire a commercial person to change their style, or at least that's how I get gigs. I love that. You don't need to dance on TikTok. You don't need to shill camera gear to build a brand online. So what does a personal brand look like these days? I mean, I guess it's going to let you pick the platform that works for you first. Probably YouTube is the obvious one, but there's lots of others. You have opinions, you have taste. Yes, back to taste. You have opinions. You're not just sharing generic platitudes. You're talking about your perspective, what you value, what you care about in the world, and that's going to help build your brand. Good advice. Consistency. Show up with the same tone, themes. Yeah, all this stuff is good. Proof of work. I mean, you can just screenshot this and read it later if you want. I don't want to read out everything it says, but just as an experiment, let's see what happens. What platform would you recommend prioritizing? Why do I always spell recommend wrong every time? And how would I do that from 0? I mean, pretty accurate there, Chatgpt. YouTube first, email second for filmmakers. Everything else is just a funnel towards those things. That's right. Again, I'm not going to read this whole thing out. A lot of this is pretty obvious idea, but yeah, I do think YouTube is first for filmmaking. You can disagree, but this is exactly what I would have said on a consultation call. I'll just scroll down here real quick so that you can pause or screenshot and read on your own if you want, but I'm going to skip over it. But that combination of YouTube and email is a very powerful business tool. So let's go back. What did I want to ask? Oh yeah, this was an interesting prompt. How should filmmakers rethink originality now that AI can generate anything? Okay, so it looks like we're circling back to similar things here. Originality no longer means creating something no one's ever seen. It means creating something no one ever would have made in the same way. So we're getting back to your perspective again here. Life experiences, reading books, you need to become a more interesting person to have something to say. You can't just be a good technician and survive. This is spot on. I mean, I really do like this advice. It's even true of huge Oscar winners. Let's look at Sean Baker. Sean Baker movies are unmistakably Sean Baker movies, from the themes to the types of shooting. And I think you need to be the same, whether you're trying to make commercials for a gym or shoot documentaries or make the next Oscar winner. Your constraints are your budget. Yeah, sure. Your process becomes part of your art. I mean, that's circling back to the same branding thing. They want to know how things were made. Kind of like how, if you ever watched those Planet Earth documentaries, my favorite part was how they made the show. And I think that's what this whole conversation has been about encouraging people to start a brand so that you can show that process, so that you can build your brand, which really means just expanding or increasing the number of people who understand what your perspective is. So it sounds like we're really just touching back on these same points here, and it's really just reinforcing things. And it's actually making me think that I should make this video about how to create a brand with YouTube without selling out. So thanks, ChatGPT. I will get on that. Yeah, let's stop asking it process questions because it seems like we're getting back to the same fundamental themes, which I think are bang on. Let's try something different. Okay, tell me one painful truth about the industry that most people don't want to admit. I'm just going to leave the typos. Everyone can deal with it. Let me know in the comments how upset you are. The industry doesn't care how hard you work. It cares if you're valuable. Yeah, that is, you can grind for 10 years, shoot for free, sleep in vans, hustle, blah, blah, blah. And you can still be broke and ignored. Yes, that is a rough truth. People want to think that they deserve a spot in the industry. Like they want to make traditional films because that's a superior art form, which I generally agree with, but people think they deserve to make things in a certain way for whatever reason. But the truth is the market does not care. And I think we're seeing that right now. There's a lot of people who are stuck in this middle class of filmmaking, broadcast TV stuff, traditional commercials, big bloated sets that are making movies that really don't have an audience anymore. I get that way is the way you like to work, but the market will not care. This is all changing whether or not you like it, and it is going to leave a lot of people behind. Like when I was in photography, a lot of people's retirement plans were their stock portfolios. They had all this archive of materials and they were going to put it out into stock, and that's what they're going to do in old age. Obviously, that stuff is completely invaluable, heartbreaking, but the market does not care. That is a hard truth and a very valuable one. And the thing with ChatGPT is you could say, tell me another one right now. That's just one thing. And I think that actually is, if you haven't taken anything else away from this video, that is something to really pay attention. It doesn't matter what you want. It only matters what the market wants. So you have two choices. You can follow what the market wants or ignore it and forge your own path and deal with the consequences. Or I guess option 3, you just quit. All right, so this has been really helpful. I'm going to wrap this up because this has already been a long video, but I want to ask it one more thing because I realize that a lot of people will really not like this direction. They're not going to like what this stands for, and I get it. So let's just try this. I don't like what you're saying, and I'd rather things stay the same, what's your brutally honest response to that? Yeah, I guess this is, I don't know what I expected. This is pretty much exactly what I just said, but it doesn't matter what you want. The longer you resist change, the more invisible you become. Yes, I've seen that across the industry, and it's heartbreaking when people fall victim to that and just kind of become slowly obsolete too young. Like I've seen guys in their 40s and 50s who just refuse to change, especially back in the day with photographers, and man, it's a rough go now. But this is the interesting part. Adaptation doesn't mean selling out. It means staying alive long enough to keep creating the work you care about. I mean, that's kind of generic and cliche, but adaptation doesn't mean selling out. If you want to tell powerful stories, build a career, and keep your voice intact, you have to evolve, not because you want to, but because you must. I mean, yeah, that's very true. I've already gone over that. I mean, I think what I'm seeing here is that AI, at least in these brief searches, it really does have a good handle on what's coming. And I would encourage you, especially if you're feeling scared, to start messing around with these tools. And instead of treating it like Google, start asking it questions like this and have a conversation. Like ask follow-up questions to the answers it gives you. And it does really interesting things. I mean, the easiest way is definitely try that Filmmaker's Life Coach tool I gave you, because it's got all these instructions built in and you just feed it a bunch of information about yourself and it gives you a massive report. And then you can ask it follow-up questions based on that. A lot of this today has been sort of generic and ignorable, but the core of it has been spot on, like really, really accurate. And if I was just starting again, that is the information I would give to someone. Very interesting for me anyways. I wonder what you guys thought, if you liked that, if it gave you any ideas how to use AI for yourself. But yeah, check out the Filmmaker's Life Coach, the link in the description. It's totally free. Let me know if it needs a better name. That's what I came up with on the spot, but I found it really helpful. And I hope you guys found that helpful, because I found it fascinating how accurate that was. And if you take anything away from this, just remember, you have to evolve. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.